Yeah, Jane, we can't see you.
Take that piece of tape off the camera.
The camera.
Steve, you don't have your wooded backdrop anymore. Where?
I'm at home. I'm at home.
Oh, so sorry.
I really
There
love
you are,
those. Like,
Jane.
it looked like you were deep in the Muir Woods or Redwood Forest somewhere.
I'll try and get back there for another meeting.
Okay, good. Hi,
See you
Jane.
now, Jane.
And
Hello, David.
so we have to remember the issue with people raising their hands.
Yeah.
And to just make everybody aware that we're going to call on them, and at the beginning of each hearing, let people know to raise their hands.
Oh, at least we have a quorum.
Yeah. Perfect. And Gretchen. There's Paul.
There's Paul. Good evening, Paul.
Hello there, how are you?
Good, how are you?
All right. Yeah, another nice, beautiful day today.
It is. It was gorgeous today.
Yeah.
We can see all of Steve's head today.
Oh, very good, Steve.
Yeah, well, I'm not on the iPad. I'm at home. So
Oh.
Anyone doing anything special for Labor Day weekend?
nope.
No.
I think
Doesn't
we're
really
gonna be
feel like
going,
Labor Day.
we'll be going with my brother to Cider Hill Farm for some donuts and cider on
Oh,
Ooh.
that's
Saturday.
a good call.
Yeah.
Hopefully the weather
Doesn't
holds
feel like
up.
September. I gotta be honest.
I know.
It seems like summer's just gonna keep going forever right now,
Right.
in a good way. Although I wish the kids were back at school.
Yeah.
Well,
Are they going to go back full time, or what are the schools
No.
doing?
They're gonna go back starting like September 16th, I think. That's gonna be a orientation week, and then on the 21st they start on a hybrid, but mostly remote schedule. So this is for the high school anyway. Every 2 weeks they'll be in school for 2 days. So half the kids in each grade, like, let's see, I think it's freshmen and juniors. Half of the freshmen and half of the juniors will be in school on the same day. Half of the sophomores and half of the seniors will be in school on the same day, so that every 2 weeks, for 2 days, they're in there. Of course, my kids are on opposite days.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, but it's something. It's a good way to start. I think it's fine. And they're gonna be playing sports and all that, so
Oh.
hopefully things
oh,
will.
well, we'll see how long all that lasts.
I
Yeah.
know.
Oh.
I know.
Yeah, I heard tonight that New York City pushed their start date back another couple of weeks.
Yeah, I know. It's funny. Everyone complained about the starting online instead of going back hybrid, but if they could have just started online, they could already be doing it. They
Right.
could already be working.
Yeah.
Which
So my
would be-
grandkids in Switzerland have been back in school now for 2 weeks,
Wow.
full time, in class,
In class.
no mask, no social distancing, nothing.
I think we'd all like to move to
Well.
Switzerland at this point.
We'll see how long that lasts too.
Yeah.
Somehow I have faith in Switzerland.
Yeah.
Well, I
More
certainly
My
so
have
son,
more
here.
faith.
my son won't be going back to work in the office until next year.
Wow. I've actually
then.
heard some companies are doing the same thing even here. A couple of friends of mine work for, I'm not going to remember the name of it, some big computer company, and they've told that they're not going to be back in the office till next August or June or something like that, basically next summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Hi,
they have
Ron.
to plan.
Hi, Gretchen.
Hi, everyone.
Oh, good. Gretchen's here and Ron's here. Okay.
Hey, everyone.
So I'm going to start recording. I'm going to start broadcasting right now. Now we're recording and broadcasting.
Okay, well, there's somebody there. Okay. Well, let's bring this meeting to order. It's the September 1st, 2020 Newburyport Conservation Commission meeting taking place on the Zoom platform. And this meeting is being recorded. First item, our approval of the August 18th, 2020 minutes. We have any comments or changes or something?
Motion to approve?
Second?
All right, Paul Healy,
Yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
Jane Sender,
Yes.
Ron DeCola,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Next item are the online updates. Do we have any updates on?
Just that I think I mentioned at the last meeting that they were hoping to hold an MRBA meeting again soon, and they have one scheduled for September 11th, which is a week from this Friday at 11 a.m. and it'll be remote. I can send you all the link to that.
Oh, okay.
Any motion on the placing of the bags?
No, they're still revising the plans and trying to finalize it. They've got two options, and right now it just comes down to a matter of cost. And they've worked out the logistics, I think, of how they're going to do it because they found a contractor who can do it, but they need to figure out how much each option will cost and what they have to spend, and that will dictate whether it's 2 bags high or 1 bag high. So that's just being worked out right now. And when I get a
DEP is
final plan,
okay?
I'll email you.
DEP is okay with it?
DEP is okay with it. They're the ones who Donna and DPS and GZA were in conversations with them just to come up with a solution that DEP would approve of. So yeah, they have given us the okay for this particular sandbag system, at least as a temporary measure. It has to be considered temporary, I guess.
So
Okay.
if the dredging of the harbor, funds might be available sometime next year, which means it wouldn't happen till 2022 perhaps.
Yeah.
I can see this temporary emergency thing happening several more times.
Yeah.
And I just wonder how much more money we're going to throw down in the sand pail before somebody starts thinking about buying the houses. And
Yeah, well, Steve, I would encourage you, those are great questions. I would encourage you to join in on the MRBA meeting on next week, because that's the kind of thing that gets discussed at each of these MRBA meetings is things like the timeline for the dredging and what it's going to take to get that done, and can we push it up, and how much is it going to cost, and permitting and those types of things. And all the political issues that go along with that come up at these MRBA meetings. So it's a good place to hear everyone's perspectives, but also to ask those kinds of questions.
okay, yeah, send the information and I'll try and be there.
Okay.
Yeah. And they better get a move on because I know there's 4 systems in the Atlantic now. 2 of them aren't going to hit us, but there's 2 around Africa, or in the middle of the Atlantic, and 1 off of Africa that we don't know where it's going. So, and there's probably a lot more to come. Okay. So next time, let's move on to certificates of compliance, request for determinations, etc. First item is Ross Solomon, 39 Reservation Terrace, request for a certificate of compliance.
Okay, so on this one, we have Tom Hughes is raising his hand. Tom, I'm gonna allow you to talk, and I wanna just remind everybody who is maybe here as an abutter or as a member of the public to ask questions, that if you, when you have a question, raise your hand and we will try to call on you at the end of the discussion, at the end of the meeting on this topic.
Okay, good evening. Those of you who've been on the commission for a while may remember this project. This was the one where we started by permitting, taking an existing cottage that had an awful lot of sentimental value to the applicant, and we were proposing to move it back on the lot, put in a pile foundation, lift it up and put it back on, and then add a second floor and do some major renovations. And then we ended up changing it into a much more simple tear down rebuild. Mr. Solomon, who did this and enjoyed the cottage for several years, is taking care of all the vegetative planting, all the things that were required. And I met Julia on site to review the area. There was some knotweed that had come in along the side of the building, and that we had pulled after filing. So that's been taken care of, and I provided a picture to Julia on that. And the site is really nicely vegetated, and the pictures that you see don't really do it justice, but it really is doing quite well, and really happy with how it came out. So I don't know, Julia, if you want to add anything to that, but you know.
Yeah, yeah, we had a site visit. It does look good out there. It is well vegetated. The American beach grass is healthy and looks good most of the way around the whole site. As I mentioned to the commission in my notes, we looked at the elevations all around the structure, and it's 2 feet around, at least in every location. There was one spot underneath the garage where one of the pilings looked like it had less than 2 feet of clearance. But we realized that was because they had mounded up the pea stone under the garage in that location, you know, and so it was just not leveled out. They put a lot of pea stone under there, and there's sort of a pile of it up against one of the pilings that when you measured them from the lowest horizontal, remember, it was less than 2 feet. It really just needed to be, that pea stone needed to be spread out, and then it solved the problem. I'm just gonna try to share with you some photos. Let me see. I can get that just a sec for you. Here we go. Can you guys see this picture?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the bottom of the structure around on one side. Here's another spot. You can see the beach grass around in front and on the sides there. This is underneath the structure in the parking area. This is the pea stone that they have spread around under there. But there's good clearance underneath the entire structure. Here's a picture from farther away so you can see what we're talking about. They did a good job. It looks good. And there was some Japanese knotweed along this left side of the garage that was still in place. And Tom and I talked about having them remove that Japanese knotweed in this location and a couple other locations as well. And they've already done that. So they got that invasive species out, and now the dune grass should be able to move in closer to the building.
Right, actually, there was dune grass in and around that knotweed. So, and the dune grass is growing in a pathway that was installed along the left-hand side of the structure. Mr. Solomon just didn't use that pathway very much. So there's dune grass growing not just where it's supposed to be, but even in the pathways. So.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
Nope.
All right. Is there a motion?
Motion to issue certificate of compliance.
Second.
All right, Paul Haley,
Yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Dan Warshall,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
Jane Sender,
Yes.
Ron DeCola,
Yes.
and I vote yes. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
The next item is the Reserve at Bashaw Farm LLC, 3 to 7 Colby Farm Lane. Request for minor modification.
Okay. Is there anyone here? Maybe Lisa Mead. Okay, let's see. Lisa, you should be able to speak now.
Thank you.
Yes.
I was talking to myself. Thank you, Julia and Mr. Chair. Lisa Mead, Teller and Costa, 30 Green Street, on behalf of Bashaw, the Reserve at Bashaw Farm LLC. And for the new members, this is the new subdivision that's going in off of Colby Farm Lane on the left, as you go down Colby Farm Lane. And this request has to do essentially with the last lot in that subdivision on the left. And the first plan that we have here is the plan that was approved for this lot. And you'll see that the driveway is on the left-hand side of this house. And if you go to the next page, Julia, the proposal is merely to move the driveway to the right-hand side of the house. The reason is that in lot 14, which is right next door, they want to put a deck and a porch. And so the driveway would be right next to it. Tight lots. So you'll see that the deck that had been proposed, or the porch that had been proposed, patio on the right side, is now removed, and you just have the entrance to the house and the driveway. What you can also see is it stays outside the 25-foot wetland buffer, which you can see there. And so everything else stays intact. Now, of course, there's also the gravel footpath, so it's not like there's not any construction that's happening. We're constructing that gravel footpath that goes in there as well. So the request is to flip the driveway on this particular lot. And we're before the planning board tomorrow night to ask for the same request for them to modify their plans. Thank you.
Any questions? Comments? Motions?
Motion to approve the minor modification.
Second,
Paul Healy,
yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Dan Warshall,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
Jane Sender,
Yes.
Ron DeCola. Is that a yes, Ron?
Yes.
Okay. And I vote yes.
Can you hear me?
Can hear you now.
Thank you very much.
Lisa, before we go on,
Sure.
on the development across the street,
Yes.
those two trailers that were on someone else's property, did they get removed? Or
Steve, I haven't been out there in a couple of weeks. At the closing that we did just about a month ago, almost everything was gone except for, I think, one trailer, and the requirement was to have it gone as well, I think by now that it's the first of the month. But I'll tell you what, next time I see you guys, I'll update you on the status of the trailers.
okay, good.
Okay.
Okay. Next item is Walter B. Long, 265 Water Street, request for determination of applicability.
Okay. Oops, sorry.
Okay. Can you
Um,
hear me?
Go ahead, Tom. Go ahead, Tom.
Oh, okay. All right. So 265 Water Street. You may remember the long permitting time we had on the neighboring property, which is the historic one with the brick on one side and the clapboards on the other and shakes at the end. This is the neighboring house. It basically the applicant would like to reskin the house. It's going to be new siding and redoing the roof on the front. I also sent in some information just for full disclosure. The longer term plan includes a second phase, which includes cutting into the back roof and putting in a roof deck. We didn't want to complicate this RDA because they'd like to get moving on the roof work and on the reskinning of the house, and also the RDA would include new deck boards on the deck on the rear. There's no disturbance on the ground. So you can see the deck is in kind of rough shape. This deck, you may remember seeing it from the adjacent site. It actually goes from the rear of the house right out to the edge of the seawall. You can see, kind of see the seawall on the right. You know, it's tight, but there'll be no disturbance on the ground as part of this project. And it's simply just a facelift on the house, some new windows, new siding, and roof work. And you'll see further on, there's actually something from Henry Becker where he just listed out the basics of the project and the protocol. But basically, any debris is going to be put right into trucks, taken right off site. The site's tight. There's not really any room to do anything else besides that. You can see it's the end of the property there. There's that cobbled driveway. And then as you go around back, there's just a very little lawn area. And then after that is deck. In the rear, you know, any staging necessary for redoing the back is placed right up on the deck. They probably put some plywood boards down on the deck if it's done before the new deck boards are down or even after, just to either strengthen it if they haven't replaced them yet or protect the new deck boards if they have. And I think if you go a couple more, you'll see Henry's letter. This is in the VE 15 zone. The structure itself on the assessor's card is valued at $460,000, and the work that we're doing is nowhere near 50% in this. And prior to moving forward on the sort of second phase part, we will be prepared to address to Julia and to the committee, you know, if needed, the sort of whole 50% on both parts together. So it's windows, replace windows, front left and right side, place the roof to the ridge in the front, clapboard siding, right and left, replace shingle siding with new wood shingles, and in the rear, replace the deck boards with new wood. So it's pretty straightforward. This was one of those things where I had to make a judgment call whether to try to wait to get a hold of Julia, because it was sort of on a Thursday, and I had to decide whether or not to make the filing deadline or wait to get a hold of Julia and see if we could do this administratively. So in the end, we just took the extra cautious step and filed the RDA. But I
Hey,
don't.
Tom?
Yeah.
Has anyone had a chance to evaluate the structure underneath the deck? Has that been confirmed to be stable or in good condition?
Henry said he looked at it, and from what he could see, it looked like it was in good shape. He might have to sister a board or two, but it didn't look like there would be anything significant at all. It was really the deck boards that were in rough shape.
My only concern would be if they run into, you know, rotten posts and joists down there, then, you know, we wouldn't want them to continue on a negative RDA with that condition.
Yeah, I mean, if anything happens that is unexpected when we uncover the deck, we would contact Julia and take whatever action would be appropriate at that point. One of the things that I did do, you'll see an aerial photograph in there, I sketched on an erosion control line. What I'm hoping is that they'll be able to snake, it'll probably just be a straw wattle, but under the deck kind of, or just along the wall. I would like to have something there as a precaution while they're doing the work, and also to, you know, make it clear the limit of work.
Just a question along the lines of what Dan was asking.
Yeah.
That deck goes right out to the very edge of the sea. So it's essentially sitting on top of the seawall.
Right.
Is that?
Yeah.
So it is. So have they done an evaluation of the seawall to make, because as we know, some of these seawalls are not in great shape, might need repair. Is this one okay? Have they looked at it structurally?
I can check with the applicant, and we can certainly suggest that they do that. I do know that when, if you remember when we looked at and I think it's really connected to the wall next door, the seawall itself, the structural engineer on that felt that it was actually in pretty good shape. Suggested, I think maybe there was some repointing or something, but nothing of any significance. We wouldn't do any work on the seawall If it needed any, we could do that as part of the phase 2 filing with you guys, which again, the phase 2 part still doesn't involve any work on the ground, at least as currently, reviewed by Jennifer at the city and as underway. That's just basically adding some living space and putting in a roof deck on the water side. But that's not part of the RDA because we didn't have that material and at the time we were putting this together.
Okay, and you do think that also the supports for this deck are in good shape? They just really need to replace the boards?
Yeah,
They're not
that's my
gonna-
understand. Yeah, that's my understanding from talking to Henry, that to the extent he could evaluate it, it looked in pretty good shape, except the surface boards. But he said once he gets in there, it might mean there might be a board or two that needs to be sistered up, because you can't see everything. But I don't envision any soil disturbance, and if there is anything, we would we would consult with you, Julia, and then come back to the commission as appropriate.
Okay.
So will this second floor deck be supported by the ground level deck?
No, the second floor deck would be cut into the roof line. So that's it's a separate thing. I sent this in. I mean, it would be wonderful if we could do it all tonight, but I only got this recently, and then my email server was down, so I was only really able to coordinate with Julia on this today. But you can see how it's just it's work up on the second floor. You can see in these drawings. You can see the red dashed line in the second image over on the top. That's kind of the extent where that part of the roof line would be demoed, and then it would be reconstructed to look like that SketchUp view that's colored down there at the bottom left.
Does the historic commission have to approve that sort of thing?
I don't know. This Henry's dealing with that, and he's been to see Jennifer, and I don't know the state of all those other things, except that Jennifer reviewed it all and is okay with it as been proposed. But again, this is something where I haven't, the first part, what we filed the RDA for was something that was pretty simple. And this, again, looks pretty simple from a conservation point of view, but whether or not there are other permits or anything required, I think Henry said it was pretty clean, but I don't know what, what Jennifer has communicated to him on that.
Yeah, I would think that the second floor, third floor work would just be a matter of ensuring that the appropriate erosion controls were in place and that any vegetation lost around the structure would be replaced. Even now with redoing the siding, there's some bushes right up against the house that might need to be replaced if they have to be removed in order to get that work done.
Right. And we, if you want to do a -3, that, any vegetation impacts would be replaced or whatever, that's fine.
Probably a good idea as well for the deck, as far as if there's any issues with that, making it a 3.
Yeah, anything beyond, the resurfacing and maybe sistering of a few boards underneath the deck, that the contractor should notify the agent. Seems like something along those lines would make sense.
I'm wondering if it would be appropriate or acceptable to have the builder at least rip up the deck boards initially at the start of the project, so we can see if there is any problem, and if so, get it addressed right up front.
Yeah, and as I said, Henry has looked at it.
Yeah,
but
right, and it's probably okay, but just in case.
So maybe upon removal of the deck boards, if there are any issues with the underlying structure beyond, sistering a few boards, that the contractor shall notify the conservation administrator or something to that effect.
Right.
To see whether additional permitting is required or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've drafted any changes to the scope or details of the work to the deck or footprint of the structure shall be presented to the commission for additional review and approval.
Okay, and I have another question on the part 2 that we're not doing tonight.
Sure.
But yeah, if that's a do we have to concern ourselves with the percentage of increase in living space or the
Right. So we would before going forward with the phase 2 permitting, we would have some more details on that. But
yeah,
the assessed value of the structure alone is $460. So there's significant room to do work on this house.
right. Yeah.
So
Okay. So you'll just have all that in place for the second filing.
right.
Yeah. Okay.
And that needs to include all of the work from phase 1 as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
We have a form that you can use to.
Yeah, no, and I know Henry will be applying for the building permits, and I'm sure the building department will walk him as well.
Okay. Anything else?
No.
Get a motion?
Motion for -3 determination with the conditions that Julia described, including the vegetation.
Second.
All right, Paul Healy,
Yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Dan Warshall,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
Jane Sender,
Yes.
Ron DeCola,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Next item is Megan Terry Ash, 10 La Valley Lane, request for certificates of compliance.
Okay. Do we have anyone here for that project? If not, I think that's okay. I think I can explain these 2 requests for certificates of compliance. Be helpful if their realtor was here, but she's not. So the owners of 10 La Valley Lane have, and I can bring up some photos of that site, but they are selling their property, and this site was developed, it's within the Kelleher Pines subdivision, which is like, I don't know, 200 and something lot subdivision it was permitted back in the like 1979 in the early 80s. And the file number for that is 051-0029. The developer left, and then each individual homeowner was responsible for asking for a certificate of compliance for their own lots. And that's what we've been doing over the years, is putting out these certificates of compliance that are really basically old, based on this subdivision from 1979. This particular lot, which was lot 2 in the Kelleher Pines subdivision, was not actually built on under the 051-0029 permit. It was left vacant, and for whatever reason they didn't build on it at the time. And then in 1994, way long after the original subdivision permit had expired and been gone by the wayside, the owner of someone purchased the lot 2, and filed notice of intent to develop it. And they received an order of conditions. They built the home, and then they received a certificate of compliance. And that was something like 051 I don't remember the file number, 400 something. And so that's all been taken care of. So this actual site has actually been issued a certificate of compliance, but because it was part of the area associated with the original subdivision, it has attached to its deed that original order of conditions, as well as another order of conditions, which is when you're seeing here 051-175 from 1988, that was the road work, utilities, culverts, drainage, etc., associated with the Kelleher Pines subdivision. And so that got this 175 order of conditions got attached to all these lots as well. And then the road work was done, the utilities were put in, and somehow or other, it still was attached to all these individual lots deeds. So this family just needs to get this 051-175 and 051-0029 off of their deed.
So
And
Julie,
yeah.
excuse me.
Yeah.
You have Charlie P. who is raising his hand. I don't know.
Oh, good. Okay. Charlie, you're there?
I am, but keep going. Thank you very much. I just want to let you know that I was listening in.
Okay, great. So I'm going to try to share with you now the photos associated with this project. Okay.
Charlie, are you the real estate agent?
No, I'm the attorney.
Okay.
Can you
representing
guys
the
see
seller.
this? Can you see this photo now?
No.
No.
No, you can't. Hold on a sec. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So this is the home that was built at 10 La Valley Lane, which again was lot 2 as part of the original Kelleher Pine subdivision. You can see this is the backyard. There's no sort of impact from the site on any wetland areas. And again, they've already received a certificate of compliance for construction of the house and all the landscaping and everything associated with it. It's really just a matter of getting rid of these 2 old orders that are attached to the deed. And sorry, hold on a sec. I need to share again. Okay. In addition, when I was looking this all up, I found, because we've been going through this Kelleher Pine subdivision or certificates of compliance for a while, I found that we issued, or I should say you all issued, a certificate of compliance for Kelleher Pines, the 1979 subdivision, was issued in October 2019, and you made it a complete certification, and it was issued to Kelleher. I'm just wondering if this couldn't be sent in, and rather than each new homeowner who still doesn't have their certificate of compliance, if they can't just take this one and send it to the Registry of Deeds and have that. Maybe Charlie, you know the answer to that. Is that something that they could do? Can they use this certificate of compliance, which is a complete certification for 051-0029? Can this just be taken by the homeowners to the Registry of Deeds and have it be applied to their deed and then again, anyone else's deed that is still outstanding?
Yeah, I think that was our intent when we issued this
Right.
one.
I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, we can
You
hear
can
you.
hear me? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at it for the first time. I'm just trying to see what the reference is. The book and page 8747194. Why don't you keep chatting? I'm going to look that up online.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Regardless of whether or not they can use this certificate of compliance and just take a copy and bring it to the Registry of Deeds, or whether they need you to issue a new one, my recommendation is that it be issued, because the house wasn't even built under this particular order of conditions. Essentially, this one was not even valid for their lot. So, and then 051-175 again was the road work and utilities that also is not really relevant to their site.
Right.
So perhaps on this one, we can just issue the COC, and then going forward, you can make that determination as to whether we can record for the entire development.
Okay. So we'll just do a new one for this property, like we have in the past, and we'll put their book and page in, and we'll put their name and address in up here. But it will be a complete certification for 0029 to get it settled for this particular property. That makes sense?
Thank you.
And also one for the other 0175.
And same for 0175.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay. So we'll need a motion for both of them, vote on both of them.
Yes.
Okay, I'll make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for 51-29 and 51-175.
Should we vote on them separately?
Yeah, I would say vote on them
Oh,
separately because they need to be
okay.
signed. We need signature pages for each.
Yeah, okay, I'll amend that to just a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for 51-29.
Second.
All right, Paul Haley,
Yes?
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Dan Warshall,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes,
Jane Sender,
Yes.
Ron DeCola,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Need a motion for
Thank you.
0175?
Yeah, okay, then I'll make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for 51-175.
Second.
Paul Haley,
Yes,
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Dan Warshall,
Yes.
David Vine,
yes,
Jane Sender,
Yes.
Ron DeCola,
Yes.
and I vote yes. All right. Hopefully that will be adequate for anybody else.
Why do I have the wrong agenda up here? Sorry.
You can't hear me anymore, right?
Nope.
Charlie, I'm going to mute you. Unless you want to be unmuted, raise your hand.
So this is, all right,
Yeah.
this is a new, what you want to call it, agenda.
Yeah.
All right, I had Holly McDonald next, but
Yes, it is Holly McDonald next. Sorry, this is, I don't know how this old draft agenda got into the system, into
Okay.
the PDFs, but sorry about that. So go
Okay.
with what you have for the agenda, Joe.
okay. Making a motion to open the public hearings.
so moved.
Moved.
Second.
All right, Paul Healy,
Yes,
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Dan Warshall,
Yes.
David Vine,
yes,
Jane Sender,
Yes.
Ron DeCola,
Yes.
and I vote yes. First item is Holly McDonald, 468th Street, notice of intent.
Okay. Mike Seacamp, do you want to handle this one? I'm going to allow you to talk.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, good evening. For the record, Mike Seacamp Environmental Consulting. And at the last meeting that we had, the last hearing for this project, the commission requested some additional information. Some of that information included separating the existing conditions from the proposed conditions on the record plan that we submitted. And what you have in front of you there now is the existing conditions. You can see that on the west side of the property, there's very little room between the house and the property line. Previous to this, we also submitted the narrative with the photographs, and maybe we'll get to that later. But on the proposed conditions plan, we included a comparison of the footprint based on the impervious surface. And that's slightly different from the calculation of the footprint from a contact with the ground. However, the proposed increase is in the neighborhood of 13% increase, and that includes the deck, the stairs, and the overhang. And I did a quick calculation of just the footprint on the ground, and actually the increase that I got was about 12.5%. So it's certainly in the ballpark. Additionally, the commission requested that we show the mitigation area. And I had submitted a proposal to fill in the gaps, because this site, where it isn't a parking area, that's mostly gravel and sand, is populated by beach grass. And so we were going to fill in the areas, but the commission wanted a specific area shown on the plan. And where that's located, if you look at the photographs that I previously submitted, you'll see that that's really the barest area. But that will not be the only extent of our plantings. We will be filling in the gaps between the existing beach grass. On this plan, we have a chart showing the comparison of the, it's in the other direction, Julia.
Okay, and I apologize if this is sideways.
No.
Adobe won't let me change it without,
We won't let you, okay.
it won't let me change it.
Yeah, so number 5 there is the existing, including the stairs. Number 6 is the proposed, and then the total proposed increase is 13.2%. And being in the AO zone, we are limited to, it has to be under 20%. So we're significantly below that. And I'd be happy to answer any questions about the existing and proposed plan view. But if not, we can move on to the elevation. The commission also requested elevation views. And what we're looking at here is the street side of the house. And on the street side, there will not be a curtain, or a curtain extending below the lowest support member. But the lowest support member is 9 feet 6 inches, and you can see that label on the plan there. And that shaded area that you see is the skirt in the rear of the house. That's the architect's rendering of the skirt. The elevation of the skirt is I believe it's 5.8 inches, and that's shown on the rear view, and that's sheet number 4 on that. Or I guess it would be sheet number 8.
Okay, is this the right sheet? What?
That is right side, so it's at the bottom. One more. There you go.
Okay.
So that one's, let's see, it should be labeled 9.6.
It was on a previous one, 5 feet 8 inches.
Oh, it was the previous
This
one?
one?
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. Yeah, so the from the average elevation, which is 14 on the lot, it goes up. So the yeah, that's 5.5 feet 8 inches to the skirt, but to the lowest support member is actually 9 feet 6 inches. 9 feet. Have to turn my
Okay.
head
But
sideways.
so the lowest horizontal member is essentially at 5 feet 8 inches, not including the stairway and the utility chase. So there will be no siding or lattice or other enclosures below 5 feet 8 inches.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. So, so that's the elevation view. Be happy to answer any questions on that. If not, we can move to the more detailed comparison between existing and proposed. Right there. Yeah. So on the top is the existing, and it was somewhat confusing, and the deck is not exactly rectangular. The architect prepared this comparison. These are the same numbers that we used on the proposed plan that the surveyor provided, waypoint survey. And basically on this plan, the cross-hatched areas is the impervious. And it includes the roof overhangs both on the existing building and on the proposed. And that's where we came up with the increased number of 13.2%. 0.2%. And let's see, I think that pretty much covers the questions that were left hanging the last time. I think the mitigation was one of the more significant ones, but I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Anybody?
No, I think this is what we asked for.
Michael, do you have a planting plan for the mitigation area?
That was included, it is included in the, I did include that. It was included in the revised project narrative submitted on July 14th. But
Yeah.
I did include on my memo that I included with this new information. The mitigation area shown as 10 by 20 rectangle on the north side of the house. This is the sandy area where the existing beach grass, Ammophila bavili gillata, is the most sparse. The plantings will be as originally provided in the project narrative, 3 culms per hole, 18 inches to 24 inches apart, a total of 200 Ammophila bavili gillata culms will be planted. And so I've included it in this memo as well.
Now, on the plan, you showed the mitigation area, but you had indicated there'd also be some additional planting.
Well, if we can go to the photographs on that project narrative that I mentioned, it would be on I believe page 3.
Hold on.
Yeah, where I was coming from was I just wanted to make sure that on some plan that they would
Yeah,
be.
the next one down, Julia. Yeah, see that area there?
Yeah.
That's where we're showing the 10 by 20. So we're not, we're going to space them, so we don't want to crowd the ones that are there. So, but that's where it's going to be, and that's going to be pretty thickly vegetated when we're done.
Okay, and that's the only place that you'll be doing the planting.
On the north side of the house, yes.
Okay.
And we also said that we were going to replant or replace that eastern red cedar that you see there.
Where that would just be somewhere else on the lot. It wouldn't be replaced right there, correct?
I would leave that up to the homeowners. It's possible we could save that particular tree, but it's also possible that it could succumb from being moved. But this property is it's a small property. It's only about it's a little over 1/10 of an acre, but I'm not aware of too many that only have beach grass and one native tree. So that's the way they want to keep it.
Well, that's fine. But they can do either replant one or try and move that one or try and keep that one. That's fine.
Okay.
So do we have anything else?
Are there some hands raised?
What's that, David?
Is there hands raised? I'm just.
No.
Okay. Lisa, you should put your hand down.
Okay, you got anything else? What do you want to do?
Motion to close the public hearing?
Second,
Paul Healy,
Yes.
Steve Moore,
yes.
Ken Warshaw,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
Jane Sender,
Yes.
Ron DeCola,
Yeah.
and I vote yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, before we get to the next item, I have to send a couple things out. And I am sending something out to Lisa and Tom and Mike Abel at DEP and also the commission. Before we get into anything from the applicants on for Chris Horan, Seacoast Homes LLC, 192 Northern Boulevard, notice of intent. I would like to do a bit of a presentation on some impact analysis that I've done on this property. Julie, you have that?
Yep, let me bring that up. Is this it, Joe?
That.
This is it.
Okay, so I did some documentation on vegetation present at 192 Northern Boulevard and some of the impacts that have happened on this page, which is from one of the latest. Apparently there's a new site plan, but this is the one that we had and I worked off of. It shows some sand areas and some gravel areas. If you want to go to the next page, Julie. So these are these yellow circles roughly give you an idea of the condition of the beach grass and other plants located on the Northern Boulevard side of the property. And you can see that there are there's grass growing on these areas. Particularly the October 2019 photos show that it's denser grass in these areas. If you can go to the next one, Julie. This is looking at it from 63rd Street. You can see an increase. Obviously, you see a car parked there, but you can see a distinct increase in the amount of grass and plants there as of October 2019. Now, if you want to go down to the next one, Julie. So this is an aerial photograph on the city MEMAP website. This photograph shows 3 vehicles parked on 192 Northern Boulevard, clearly impacting the plant life growing there. Two of them are clearly part of the, well, all 3 of them are clearly part of the development going on at 3 and 5 63rd Street. And it shows the damage done. There is, according to this aerial photo, which was taken at some point after April 20th this year, you can see a distinct lack of any plant life where these trucks are parking. You can see a laydown area that is next to the center white pickup truck to the right of it, behind the telephone pole. So there was some significant impact to the site. You can go to the next page, Julie. This is an overlay of the site plan showing how these vehicles are pretty much, they essentially were creating the open areas here, the sand areas and the gravel areas. So you can also see in the previous picture, you can see all sorts of tire tracks down next to the white truck. And I expect at certain points, these areas were probably full of vehicles. So, so there's no doubt that there was significant damage caused to these areas with the use of these vehicles. All right, you want to go to the next page, Julie? And I did some calculations using the city MEMAP website to calculate the impact. In this one, it is the area just inside the property lines. The impact was just over 2,000 square feet, and the GIS area of this lot, even though it doesn't match the numbers on the cards for these lots, was 8,400, 8,451 square feet. So this impact was just over 24% of the entire lot. So I want to go to the next image. This one measures the entire dune on the lot, and the impact caused by this this activity, where just under 2,800 square feet were denuded by the trucks, which is the overall area of the dune, and the associated dune with this lot was about 9,000 square feet. So this area ended up being about 31% of the total dune area on this lot. So what is the last one, I think, is my my statement. Yeah, and I'm going to, I'll just read this out for the record. In conclusion, Chris Horan, the owner of Seacoast Homes LLC, is a veteran of development on Plum Island. He's currently finishing construction on 2 buildings on 2 lots directly abutting 192 Northern Boulevard. As such, you should be aware of the requirements prohibiting unpermitted alteration of a coastal dune. Despite this, Mr. Horan decided to use 192 Northern Boulevard as a parking lot and staging area for his and/or his contractor's vehicles and construction materials. Doing this has resulted in a loss of thousands of square feet of vegetation on this lot and the associated dune. Save for the northernmost sand area along 65th Street, which a neighbor clearly used as a parking area. Most of the area where these vehicles destroyed the vegetation is called out as open sand or gravel, as shown in figure 5 above, in the site plan for this notice of intent submission. The above proof directly contradicts comments made by the applicant's representatives, claiming that the lack of vegetation was in part a result of neighbors parking on this area, and that there was gravel present also. The above photos show these claims were not true. As a result of the aforementioned unpermitted alterations, I believe the commission should seriously consider issuing an immediate enforcement order against Mr. Horan and Seacoast Homes for the damages vehicles and related activities have caused to this dune. I believe this lot should be restored to at least how it was in October 2019, and restoration has to include the gravel and sand driveway areas, which could not revegetate because the applicant used them as parking staging areas while constructing these neighboring buildings. And I believe this restoration should begin immediately. As it stands now, I will be voting no on any motion issue order conditions for this project. That includes any offer to include restoration as part of the order of conditions, as I do not think it is at all reasonable in this case. I don't think the commission should even consider issuing an order of conditions until this lot is restored. For his own convenience, this applicant demonstrated a blatant disregard for the dune on this property and should not be given the benefit of the doubt. Thank you. If any commissioners want to comment or ask questions, I am happy to give the applicant and his representatives all the time they need to discuss this. All right, well, it's off to.
When we were out there in June on the site visit, it seemed to me that a lot of the vegetation, particularly along Northern Boulevard, had sort of grown back. I don't recall seeing quite so much bare ground, but I could be wrong.
Well, I think I saw a bit, but I don't remember the exact conditions as it was out there.
Mr. Chair,
Yep.
I just wanted you to know, when the commission is done commenting on your presentation, I would like to open up.
Yeah, that's fine. Are we set at this point? Obviously, you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think, I'd like to review what you would put together, but I don't see why that should hold us back.
No, oh, no, no, I'm fine with going ahead with whatever they're presenting tonight, but. All right, Lisa, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, Lisa Mead, Tellerman Costa, on behalf of the applicant for the property at 192 Northern Boulevard. It would have been great to see this in advance so that we could also do the overlays, but I certainly appreciate the work that you have put into this, Mr. Chair. And I think that it is important to note that again, I would like to examine this as well, that in fact, Mr. Hughes did say that there were a number of areas that he thought were damaged that he did not take into consideration in his calculations relative to the proposed disturbance and then revegetation on the site. And I think that Steve is correct. For when we were out there, some of this vegetation had grown back. And I think that if you look at this lot over the years, there is a, not just in the last year or 2 years, but certainly over the last 10 years, I think there was something that was back further than that. But there has been, particularly around the edges, you know, obviously everybody knows about the 65th Street parking lot or parking space. We were all out there when the abutter very clearly said, you know, look, somebody gravelled this and we park here, so that everybody knows that that exists. And that off and on, the area along Northern Boulevard is vegetated and not vegetated, quite frankly, depending on how bad the winter has been and how great the fishing season might be. And then similarly, depending on how active the house was at the on 63rd Street, that area that's used as a parking space beside the former structure, which was not in the middle of the lot. And again, we have some, obviously our overlay plans will show it, that was not fully vegetated. But I don't think that we disagree, Mr. Chair, that there was a lot of vegetation up along 63rd Street. And I don't believe that Mr. Hughes took that into account. And I think it's going to be important. And obviously you have great concern about this, and I don't doubt that at all. But I would like to have Mr. Hughes go through the calculations that he's done, and based upon the areas that he's calculated. The applicant has significantly changed his plans, I think reduced the impact and moved them forward and whatnot. We want to go over with the commission. But as the commission knows, we've certainly provided our memorandum in advance relative to the use of the calculation for no net impact. Really is a methodology that people use for convenience, but it's not the standard in the regulations relative to how you deal with impact on a dune, and whether or not the eventual construction and or replanting and or disturbance actually diminishes the value of the resource area or disturbs the dune such that it disturbs the dune in its entirety. So I'm not going to get into all of the details of that right now, but I do, particularly since you've provided this presentation, I think that it's really important to have Tom go through his analysis, how he recalculated it based upon our last meeting and then our site visit, and in addition, the redesign of the property on site. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Tom before we go back and talk about how we move forward.
Okay, good evening. Julia, if you could put on the plan with the images on it, and I realized what we had submitted was actually the wrong version. I did email you an updated one, which is just clearer to read, and it might be helpful. We do intend on continuing to the next meeting because we're still trying to have some more communication with DEP, but we can work with this one if you want to, or I did email it in one that.
When did you email me something, Tom?
It was when I was preparing, so it was like 6 o'clock. It is this plan, but the 3 panels are actually supposed to be more different to help you kind of better understand. But we can work with this if you want. So if you could zoom in as an example, if you could zoom into the area along 65th Street.
65th or 63rd?
65th, just to start
Okay.
with that parking area. What we did, so first of all, the original vegetative delineation was done in the field by me working with the surveyor prior to any work or any construction activity on the adjacent lots, and was based on the conditions that I observed at the time. And I think the date of the survey is on the plan that we submitted at some point, but I think it was like June-ish, July-ish, 2019, and I can get you that date. After the site visit and after the first hearing, there were a lot of questions about the sand areas and everything. So we looked at the 2 most recent aerial photographs available, 2019 and 2017. In those aerials, the 2017 was a MyMap one, which I'm unable to download in a version that we can import into CAD and work with at a true scale. But we compared that to the 2019 image. And the 2019 image is an ortho photo that was taken, I think, in February of 19. I can get the exact date for the commission if you'd like. And that is something that's geo-referenced that we can work with. So we imported that. And if you look to the left of the area labeled sand, you'll see that gray area that kind of zigzags and goes off. That we removed from our calculation area right there, because on the 2019 image, it was taken earlier in the year before we did the field work. And I'm guessing that what happened is, as the summer started up, people parked more and impacted that vegetation. So what I saw when I did my field work didn't exist when the aerial was taken. And it also didn't exist in the 2017 one as clearly. So, so we removed that from our area. And that, if we can go down, I can show you some other areas where we did the same thing. So we reduced the areas we were claiming to things that not only were observed in the field prior to any construction disturbance on site. And I think I pretty readily said there was construction disturbance that went beyond some of the areas that had been used for parking, and that our intent is that those would be restored as part of the COC process on those other lots, back to what we documented prior to work starting, which was the survey work. So on the left-hand side, you can see an area that we carved out of what we were claiming along Northern Boulevard. The other thing you'll note is, if you note the green lines in our original submission, we had your sort of typical surveyor locate shrub thing, which was much more of a cloud. This is an actual survey of the perimeter of the plants as they existed after our site visit. If you remember, we discussed it during the site visit and at the prior hearing, that those were sort of more typical. You know, the surveyor typically locates the center of a shrub area, a couple shots on the outside, and does a cloud that pretty much approximates it. We located every single one of those shrubs. They're beach plum with bittersweet growing in and amongst them in the shrub cluster in the center. If we can scroll down. Okay, so this is the corner where we had the gravel area, which we provided you with pictures in our NOI filing of the state of things when I did the field work, the sand area. But there was this dark shaded area. So we removed, if you see the label there, we removed the vegetation from the sand total. When we did the survey, that area was sand. When the photo was taken in 19, and consistent with 17, there was shading in that area. So you can see that polygon was removed. There's another one that kind of cuts into the stairway of the proposed structure that was removed. So we reduced what we were claiming as unvegetated area on property based on the kind of the union between the 2019 image and the field work, and it was consistent with the 2017 image. The next thing we did after doing all that work is we made some changes to the structure. So we moved the stairway on the left further towards the street, and we trimmed down the driveway so that we had less impact from that. Eileen incorporated sprinkler systems into the structure so we can get rid of one means of egress. So we got rid of a stairway on the right-hand side of the structure. The other thing we did, if you can scroll up to the shrub area, is the structure was reduced in some areas and also pulled slightly back towards the street, and we lifted the elevation of it, and I'll go through the architecturals. Basically get us completely, with all our piles, we are now out of the beach plum area, and where we clip it, the lighter tan there is a second floor cantilevered balcony. So we're up about 20 feet off grade with that cantilevered balcony, and the area where it juts out on the first level is also cantilevered, but that's 8-9 feet up in the air, and it's over a very low area of those shrubs. We also identified 2 much smaller saplings of the beach plum that are in the footprint of the structure a little further down, and those will be transplanted on site. We also propose to bolster within the sparse area that surrounds those shrubs on the right-hand side. You may remember from the site visit, and I have to say that area is actually less vegetated than an area of planting that you just considered in a prior filing. I didn't count that area as not vegetated because to me it had enough dune grass that I couldn't really count that as a non-vegetated area. But we would increase the density of planting within the sparse area, similar to your prior applicant, by increasing the amount of beach plum up in that area. The other thing, if we can scroll down a little bit, so up a hair, the red snow fence, we went over the site with the pile driving company, and they can keep their equipment within that red line so they would not go into or drive into those beach plum, and they can drive all the piles necessary from behind that. So that would be the limit of any heavy equipment operating on site. I think what would be helpful now, if we could go to the architectural plan.
Yep.
So you can see here what we did is we have the skirting. If you can look at the 2 views on the left. The structure at the rear, as we get near those shrubs, is completely open from where that skirting ends back. Inside the structure, if you can see down on the bottom one, there's a note. That skirting will go across to block people from walking through the structure into the vegetated portion of the site. And that's an important element, and when we go to the site plan, I'll explain why. But we're also significantly up above the ground, so we believe that we will not impact that beach plum stand for years to come, but we also would be adding an additional 12 beach plum to expand the area. The other thing that we are offering is we would put a deed restriction that would basically protect that vegetated area outside the development footprint on site. And now if we can go to the site plan. So this site plan didn't change. The only thing that changed was the graphical representation of the vegetation. We had 3 panels that showed the 3 different steps we took in the vegetation analysis. So here you can see the split rail fence that is shown on the current site plan, leaving the rear corner of the rear right near the house in the shrub area. Okay,
Yes.
right there, right. And then it runs over to the property line all the way up to 65th, all the way over and all the way down. And as currently shown, it stops right before 63rd. Our plan, as described in narrative form in our most recent email to the commission and to DEP, is that we would actually now extend that all the way down to 63rd, over and back up around and connect into the building next to the stairway. So basically what we would end up doing is encapsulating, and we would bring the other end of the fence right up to the building corner. So that basically we would be fencing off the vegetated part of the site from the house and the development area. It doesn't mean that the resident who lives there can't walk into the vegetated area, pick some beach plums, enjoy the vegetated area. But that physical presence of the fence will do something that if you look at this lot over time, both during the cycle of the year, right? There are times of the year when it recovers in the vegetative fashion, and there are times of the year when it doesn't. And I've seen fishermen park there, I've seen neighbors park there. And, you know, there are some core areas, and I believe the areas that we show on our original survey plan as being impacted, that are impacted by those fishermen and neighborhood uses. The construction impact has certainly exacerbated that. And we're not taking any credit, and we fully intend on restoring those areas that were damaged beyond what was on the site at the start of that construction period. But but in terms of what we'd be looking at, is you look at this corner on 63rd and Northern has been heavily impacted by parking, but also by snow plows pushing snow up in that area. And the fact, since it's a vacant lot, the property owner really doesn't have any incentive to restrict access or stop these ongoing impacts. Although my understanding is he tried from here, you know, here and there over the years to stop encroachments of people parking on the property, but it's kind of to no avail. What we would be doing is we would be stopping all that. If you remember during the site visit, there's even a little bit of a deer trail where people seem to cross over the lot on their way to the beach from Northern Boulevard. All of that regular and kind of ongoing changing anthropogenic impacts that that affect how the dune functions on the site on an ongoing basis, because of its location, you know, 2 street corners on you know, on a busy street, and you know, in and amongst the neighborhood. We would basically be curtailing that and allowing that whole vegetated dune to be free of disturbance outside the footprint of what we're proposing, which is a really modest and small, you know, single family home for a double lot that's paid a betterment for the sewer. So I think what we've got in our proposal is a pretty good and sound one. And, you know, I've seen the, you know, the information the chairman's provided, and I need time now to go through and analyze that. There is some overlap with areas that were documented, you know, both through aerials, for example, the driveway that comes over from the neighbor, the ongoing impacts that we can exclude from what the contractor did that were documented before the contractor started, but we can certainly identify the areas that were impacted beyond that by the contractor and come up with a planting plan for those other projects to be responsible for replanting. Whether that's done before or after construction happens on this site, we can certainly work with the commission on that. But those construction impacts are in no way related to what we've provided for existing conditions and not related to what we're proposing on the project. With that said, the one thing that DEP that we're trying to work out with them is one of the things that we mentioned as part of the ongoing anthropogenic impacts on site was the fact that during the water and sewer project, as people tell me, this was one that was used by the sewer contractor for storage of materials, lay down area, whatever. And that, you know, based on my review of aerials, it does look like it restored after that, but it was an impact to this lot that happened over time. DEP, however, is because a certificate of compliance was never issued for the water and sewer project, feels that all areas that were supposed to have been restored by the city somehow have to have been maintained, restored since then, which gets into a huge hornet's nest because it's not the only site that was impacted by the water and sewer project. Who knows what the state of those sites is now? And, you know, probably at no fault of the city, probably areas that were, you know, restored by the contractor are in a different shape now. Some of them may even have been built on. So we're trying to separate the water and sewer issue from, you know, in terms of the restoration of water and sewer sites from how they're reviewing the vegetation on the site. So with that, with regards to, you know, the analysis I've done, I'm happy to answer any questions. With regard to the chairman's analysis, I really need time with it to review it, to take a look at those various things. You know, I do note some of the things I saw in some of the street side imagery is the cedar. I think it's a cedar that's over by Northern Boulevard. I'm trying to stretch my memory right now. Is much smaller in some of those photos, and so is the shrub stand behind it. And they're undated, so it's difficult to say exactly when. But this site clearly has been impacted over the years in different ways and in different severities and different months. And I do know I saw plenty of people when the parking lot was closed at the end that were parking there to get to the beach, many with fishing rods. But, you know, this is just a place where if there's no house there, so people take advantage of it.
I have a question, Tom, before we end this.
Yeah.
You've shown us where the fence is going to go, the split rail, which is going to sort of like
Right.
cover this whole back part towards 65th Street and then down all the way along Northern Boulevard over to the stairway here. But what goes on in this area to the east of the house?
So actually, I sort of misthought that through as I was explaining the change. What would happen there is it would come all the way down to 63rd to the corner and go over to the driveway and then come back, kind of go around the propane tanks. You know, but it would basically limit where people are going to be actively walking and using the outside to those areas that we're showing you as being altered.
Yeah, because I like to try and be realistic when we think about how the site is going to be used once people are living here.
Right, right.
You know, they're going to want some outside space too. But the way this is all calculated doesn't leave room for that.
Right, and so that gets to so that does get to the thing with the 1-to-1 calculation. The 1-to-1, if you the actual performance standard, it requires you to think about dune function and how the vegetation impacts dune function, and that's a kind of a difficult lift for every single site for the commission to review and for applicants to provide. So we've kind of simplified that over the years to this 1-to-1 thing. That we, in most cases, fits the bill, right? If we do 1-to-1, you know, then we're kind of good. But the vegetation standard doesn't say 1-to-1.
No, but if you would ask, just from personal experience, if you would ask CZM, Coastal Zone Management, how they interpret the vegetation standard and the regulations for coastal dune, they would say that you can't replicate, that they don't want any existing healthy vegetation removed at all. So there's different ways to look at it. I know there's some legal precedent for looking at it with a 1-to-1 or a dune function sort of standpoint, but there are others who would say that any removal of vegetation destabilizes the dune, period. So
right, and that gets into the things, and this is getting into an area that I think, you know, Lisa's provided a memo on, and we can get into a little bit. I think you guys need time to review that, and then maybe we can talk more about it at the next meeting. But the CCM can have their opinions on things, but ultimately it's the administrative decisions that ultimately.
Yeah. Well, what I mean is that there's no rule anywhere about it.
Right. Right. Which is right.
It's really a site-specific kind of a determination that needs to get made by the commission.
Right.
On each site. Without those standards to go by, there is nothing guiding them towards or away from one-to-one, or that requires them to allow any removal of vegetation for that matter.
Well,
I
no.
just wanted to make that clear.
Well, if I could just pop in here for a second. So Julia, you're right. I mean, it's a combination of factors, right? Because ultimately the question under the regulations is there an adverse effect such that it diminishes the value of the resource area? And so that has been looked at in a number of different ways. And certainly the issue of net replacement one-to-one is one of the ways to determine it, but it's not the sole way, I think, is the issue here. And certainly there actually is administrative decisions that say you can reduce the vegetation if the quality of vegetation that you put back is better, or you can add a higher quality of vegetation to the site. So I think that what we're trying to show here is that this is a lot that has had a lot of impact over the years. And I'm not talking about the current impact from construction. I understand what the chairman is saying, but I'm talking about the impact over the years absent the construction. And it's a buildable lot. And so the question is, how do you and can you use the lot to construct a single family home, which is the allowed use on the lot, without diminishing the value of the resource area? And what we are trying to show, and what I believe Tom has tried to show, is that we can do a number of things on this property to A, enhance the vegetation on it, and B, protect it in the long run, which it's not being done right now, for all of the reasons that Tom has said. So I think that you're right. And I think that the commission and DEP takes all of these on a case-by-case basis for sure. We're not talking about a primary dune here, and we're talking about a lot that is sided on three sides by a street, a main street on Plum Island that has development all around it. And so the question is, how do you protect this area of the dune? And how do you improve the protection? And can we actually, even though we're not required to, can we actually improve the value of the resource area that exists, even at the same time as we construct a home on here? And so I think that we certainly have to look at what the chair has done, and we want the commission to consider what we're proposing. But I think that that was the purpose of my memorandum, was to say, we have to look at all of these things, that it's not a net no loss issue here. We have to look at all of the items.
So getting into the improving quality, what we're trying to do by improving quality is the fencing off to stop the ongoing impacts, the additional beach plum and protecting that beach plum cluster and allowing it to grow and expand, which to me, the beach plum area is probably providing the greatest function on this lot. And it's got bittersweet in it. So the other thing I didn't mention is that we are committed to controlling the bittersweet as well as part of this. So we believe that we can, and there are sparse areas, and the sparse areas that are to the right of the stand in between those beach plum that are shown there is very similar to the planting area that you just saw presented to you on 68th Street. So we would be planting within that area to increase the density, putting in those beach plum. We can also put in dune grass around that if there's any bare spots as well. We think that we can do a single family home here and then provide a way of having a vegetated area with a deed restriction that just reinforces that people cannot alter the vegetation without any approval from the commission in those protected areas. So it's something that when somebody buys this, it's going to be brought to their attention, because not only is it just an order of conditions that's among the many papers, it's actually right there in the deed, explicit. The other thing is the area that we are not touching at all, which is the half of the lot that is towards 65th, is immediately adjacent to the untouched lot that is part of the 5 family. So you'll still have in this section of Plum Island pretty much preserved forever these 2 lots side by each with each other that are going to provide a nice area of dune in the middle of this fairly densely developed area, and will continue to provide some good dune function. In addition, this thing's elevated on piles, open and underneath. Sand will be able to move around. Floodwaters will be able to move around. The dune will continue to function with the house there, and it's a real small footprint. So we believe that any impacts from the single family home are as small as they can possibly be, and that our preservation and protection of the dune to prevent ongoing impacts that will occur, whether we like it or not, they will occur on this lot if nobody buys a home and nobody's fence to protect the property. And if somebody's not allowed to, build here, I doubt the property owner is going to invest in a fence.
Is that adjacent lot that is going to remain undeveloped also going to be fenced off so that people can't access it?
Unfortunately, that permit was already issued, and it's too late, I think, because there's a homeowners association there that now, I suppose we could approach. But Lisa, what's your feeling on that with that homeowners association?
Right. So we've already got a purchase and sale agreements regarding that and approved condominium documents. So I'd have to talk to Chris, and every one of those units is under agreement. So I'd have to talk to Chris about the ability to put. Steve, is your request about whether or not a split rail fence could run along 65th Street there?
Yeah.
And capture that other lot.
Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah, so maybe along 65th, but not into the lot. I'm gonna have to talk to Chris about that before we come back. But that's the struggle we have. But I certainly understand your requests.
One thing I will point out, and Lisa, you will remember the language better than I do, but the commission did require us to have language in the homeowners document that does prevent those owners from altering that area.
Yeah, no, that's in the, for sure. That's in the condo docs for sure.
Right. But that's not
So
going to prevent somebody from parking there, unrelated to the homeowners.
Yeah, Steve, I certainly understand the question. I'm gonna, the sad thing about our Zoom meetings is you can't get answers on the fly, right? Because I don't have my client sitting here right next to me. Right. So we will, I certainly understand the request, and we will get back to you on that.
Now, how many bedrooms are in this house?
I think, do you have the floor plans?
I don't think we have the floor plans.
I think it's 2 in an office, maybe. 3 bedrooms. Eileen just texted me 3 bedrooms.
Okay, so there will be a family there with kids, presumably.
Yeah, it's a small house, Steve. The house next door sold, and there's no, in this 3 bedrooms, there's no children in that house. It's a small house.
Okay.
That's not saying there's not going to be kids there, but it's a small house.
Because the way this plan is set up, the only outside area that kids could play in is the driveway.
Or the beach down the road.
Yeah, but
I mean, we can look, if we can scroll up to the impact table as we've calculated based on, let's at least for now put aside the debate on what vegetation we're counting or not counting, and at least based on our current numbers, we were increasing vegetated area. And if we look at the table, we might have enough to be able to put some small area off the driveway, but we really were trying to keep our impacts as small as possible.
No, I understand, but I mean, if there's a family there with kids.
Well, you got under the building too, Yeah. I know it's interesting though, Steve. I've not, I certainly don't attend every Conservation Commission meeting on Plum Island, but I don't recall having this conversation on any other lot on Plum Island about kids playing outside.
Right, but most places there is some area where they can play, and on this particular lot, the way it's set up, it's just driveway. I mean, I'm all for,
Yeah.
as much vegetation as possible, but let's be realistic.
Yeah,
We also,
and
we also have a roof deck,
well,
by the way, for outdoor
the-
space.
the thing is that a lot of times when we get a proposal for a house or addition to a house or whatever, renovations on Plum Island, it incorporates a patio and some walkways and, some outside usable space, whatever that looks like, meeting the regulations. And this has nothing. Not only does it have nothing, there's really no allowance even to make it possible because we're taking up every square foot of sort of impact area. That's all I think. Is that what you're trying to say, Steve?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that,
I think it's a good point, and we can look at
right.
it.
The most equivalent property that I think I would compare it to would be the K Street
Mhm.
one that was developed. That didn't really include any outdoor
Right.
space.
It had a big
And-
bush in the middle of it too.
Yeah, and that
Yeah.
that one I think has pretty successfully, when I've driven by, I have not seen that people have gone outside the limit of what we expected.
Yeah, it looks like it's being, and there's a fence on that one too, if I can remember correctly.
Not as complete as this.
No, but
yes.
it does sort of fence off that heavily vegetated area of the site, and it does look like that's been preserved really well over
Right.
time. So that is good.
Right, and if you remember that one, our challenge on non-vegetated areas was so extreme. We were picking up 8 square foot areas, and we
Yeah.
included a paved section of the road that had to
I
be
know. I remember.
going under a deck. So this is a better plan in terms of there's no provision that we have to remove pavement to make this work, which was something that happened on the K Street project. So in terms of the precedent of the commission and looking at these things, I believe this is consistent with these unvegetated lots, how they've been treated. And I think that we've tried to make this as least impactful as possible and benefit dune function with our vegetation plan as much as we can.
Steve, I've been texting with Chris. He's okay with running a split rail fence along the other property on 65th, but we need to get authorization from the folks who we have purchase and sale agreements with. So we'll get back to you on that.
Okay.
And the plan is a foot off the pavement with that fence.
Right.
Along Northern, we can go right along the lot line. But because the right of way is vegetated there, but on the other street areas, we would have to, since the pavement comes into the property, we'd want to be a foot off so that we don't create an obvious, an ask for a car to hit it or for a plow to damage it. But
So when we come back, obviously we're gonna examine what the chair provided. We're gonna show the split rail fence where Tom has now discussed it. We're gonna reevaluate the outdoor area. We're going to talk to the purchasers of the units in the 5 unit to make sure that we can throw a split rail fence along 65th to help prevent access over there too. And I'd be interested to hear if the commissioners have anything else to add to that.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. You had said before that you had these issues with DEP, and I think Tom had actually included us in some kind of an email chain that
Yes.
kind of died abruptly. I'd like to see what that is all about and if that has any impact on our evaluating the site.
right.
And
So we have, to answer that, we have not gotten the response from DEP, and I believe it is because Rachel Freed was out for a good amount of time during that period. And my guess is Mike wanted to coordinate with her on a response. So I've been trying to get a hold of them, but they only have 5 people in the Nero office at any given time. Everybody else is work at home. So it's very difficult right now to coordinate with DEP.
Well, it'd be good to see if that comes to conclusion and for us to understand that. The other thing that you mentioned, Tom, was about the water and sewer contract using this as a staging area. Who gave that contractor permission to do it? Was it the
I,
owner?
I don't know, somebody, and I forget who told me this lot had been used, and other people, I can't remember if it was somebody in the neighborhood, but it was conveyed to me that, you know, that the city had used this lot, so why couldn't you build a house here, kind of thing, and it didn't come
Not
from the
usually
applicant.
the way it would work on private property. And it's usually the contractor that would make the arrangements. with
Right,
the
but
owner.
and I believe if I looked at the aerial photographs and I could see that it looked like it had been vegetated after the water and sewer project had occurred. So I believe that see, the issue though is to DEP, since there's an outstanding order of conditions that says that all these different areas needed to be restored, is, well, since the city hasn't gotten a COC yet, you know, it still needs to be restored, which is a really difficult spot to be in because that water and sewer project now was so long ago. How are you going to figure out what was restored, what wasn't, who impacted it? I mean,
Well, yeah, I mean, but the idea that the city used this and why can't we, or whatever the argument you just made, I don't quite buy that because no homeowner is going to give their lot to a contractor without getting some kind of a compensation.
look, I don't know what the deal was with that. And my point in raising it in the NOI was not that, okay, the city used it, so we should be able to do a home. I think somebody said that to me. That's what I was trying to convey.
Wow.
Wasn't the applicant. It was somebody, you know, somebody.
Well, why don't you clarify that? Because
Yeah.
that's a big thing. I mean, if
Right.
you're saying you're
But
basically-
right. So I can check with the owner as to what happened with that use. But, you know, there are very few vacant lots. And my guess was the contractors are probably trying to take advantage of any vacant lots on Plum Island at the time. But my point in raising that was that, you know, it was within the context of it's been used for, you know, snow to be pushed on. It's been used, you know, for water and sewer. It's been used for this, been used for that. There's just been impacted by different things over the years. And it doesn't really seem to have stopped for any length of time, these ongoing impacts, whether it's neighbors, whether it's fishermen, whether it's the contractor next door, whether, you know, whatever it is, it just seems to keep going with this lot. And that was kind of the point I was trying to make. Not that we deserve to be able to build because the city used the lot. That's not at all.
No, it's just that you're making a statement that the city used the lot, and it's not really clear that the city used it.
So I will, you know, that was what was conveyed to me, and enough people sort of nodded, you know, in my recollection that,
Well, there had to be
that
an
we
owner.
included that. But I will follow up with the landowner, who I haven't really talked about this. I will ask him, you know, did they use it? If they did, you know, was there a legal arrangement, or was it just, hey, I'm not using that lot. If you want to use it, go ahead. I mean, I don't know.
It could be that the homeowner at the time didn't care, or the property owner at the time didn't care if it was impacted or not. I mean, in on Plum Island, you know, it was a buildable lot. Maybe he was going to build on it. It didn't really matter.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but it's taking you to the same place. It's taking you to an owner who's
Yeah.
utilizing a lot, and then it's turned into something that's not vegetated.
All right. Well, let me find out what the story with that part is. I'll probably need to clarify that for my communications with DEP anyway. So I will I'll try to get more information on that. My point in raising it to the commission was more, one, to say what, you know, DEP seems to be just stuck on the water and sewer project part of it, and you know, the fact that the waiver and all this stuff, and I mean, you've seen it in their comments. But my point in raising it was more just there's just been an ongoing impact from human disturbance on this lot, on this double lot. So that's kind of the main point that I'm trying to make there, and that we have a way that we think we can curtail that, which will provide more reliable ongoing dune function.
Honestly, I don't know what the relevance is with the ongoing disturbance. The pictures that I show, there are pictures from October of last year. They are dated pictures showing rather heavy vegetation there when it wasn't being impacted.
Right. We will
It
look
grew
at that.
back rather rapidly.
Right.
So-
We will. Right. No, we will look at your materials and provide a response.
And Tom, I've got a question too. Well, actually, one is just a comment. I believe as part of the water sewer project, either the city or the contractor was supposed to go down every single street and videotape what that street looked like both before and after the water and sewer project. So if those still exist, you might be able to find something there.
Yeah, I'm personally, I'm not I'm not interested in doing the COC though for the city on the water and sewer project.
Right. Yeah.
Now. But no, that might be helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. If anybody needed those pictures, but the other thing was, when you're reviewing those documents that Joe put together, there was, a lot of it was the non-vegetated areas right now that should not be included in your count of what's going to be vegetated. If you could, as you're reviewing his documents, if you could keep a running commentary on which pieces you agree with, and if there's pieces you don't agree with, why,
Sure.
so we can reach some point of agreement between all of us as to the bottom line.
Right.
I think we'll get a presentation. I think, Paul, you make a really good point, because there's a lot of, we have a lot of aerials, and there's a lot of, I don't want to call them accusations, but the things that have been put forward. So we're going to figure out a way that we can do a presentation which uses Joe's information as well as everything Tom has, run the calculations, maybe it's a color-coded kind of plan or something like that, runs the calculations and be able to show you specifically, so there's no confusion.
Right. That's excellent.
One thing that would be really helpful in that, and Julia, I don't know if you know this or not, is it possible to get the actual raw images that you have in my map, basically in their original georeference thing, so we can bring them into CAD and to ArcMap for
that is a question that's beyond my technological expertise.
Right.
I could ask Diane. It might have to be done through Merrimack Valley.
Right. If I can get the 2020 and the 2017, that would actually allow me to do better, a better job of digitizing, and especially the 2020, because then we could actually overlay construction impacts and give you.
Can you put a very specific request in writing to me in email, and I can forward it to Diane?
Will do.
Well, I think to help bolster that, the need for that information, this is an issue that's been raised by the chair of the commission, right, on behalf of the city. And it's a legitimate calculation that needs to be run, and it needs to be run accurately. So maybe that would be helpful in the argument to Merrimack Valley.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what I did to generate the overlays was I used ArcMap, and I just exported a picture from MEMAP, and I geolocated it on the lot lines as shown on the shown in the layer for the city's lot lines.
Right,
So,
and they're not those are the problem. I get it, Joe, but that's not accurate. You know what I mean? It's not completely accurate. And
no, I know it's not.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get it. Yeah, I'm just trying to get it so that it's as accurate as possible.
Right. If we can get it so we can actually import it perfectly to scale, georeferenced into the plan with all our other layers, it allows us to do an awful lot more comparison and calculation and some better graphics to truly show you what additional impact the contractor had over the conditions at the site. And we have to look through your whole presentation. There's an awful lot there to kind of digest in in a 15-minute presentation and
Mhm.
be able to incorporate it all. So, you know, we will do that.
You have anything else?
Okay. When do you want to continue to?
The next meeting, I think.
Yeah, that would be great.
The 15th?
Yeah.
Motion to continue to September 15th?
Before we continue,
Oh,
do we want to ask the public if they have any comments?
all right.
There is no public. They're all part of this group.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
pretty sure Eileen Graff is their architect.
Eileen's the architect.
Okay, so there is no public.
Second,
All right, Paul Healy,
Yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Jan Warshaw,
yes.
David Vine, Jane Sender,
Yes.
Ron DeCola,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
Thank you
Mr.
very
Chair-
much.
Mr. Chair, just one quick thing. First of
Yeah.
all, thank you very much for the time. Steve, I learned that all of the trailers have been removed.
Okay, good.
Very good.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Okay. The next item is John D. Filippo, Newburyport Yacht Club, 300 to 302 R Merrimack Street. Notice of intent.
Okay.
Is that yours, Tom?
Yes, it is. So good evening. Tom Hughes with Hughes Environmental Consulting. This NOI includes two different kind of discrete projects. One is around the clubhouse and the other is the boat ramp. And they're relatively minor, but you know, what I'd like to do is walk you through it. First, while we've got this photo in front of you, you can see, just to orient you, this is sort of what I'll call the main campus of the yacht club. You also have the Woodland Street lot that's in the upper left. You can kind of see that. But the swimming pool, you'll notice, is right next to the clubhouse, and the NOI includes some renovations and maintenance to the clubhouse, as well as repairs to the pool area. The other area you'll see is the boat ramp, which is down kind of to the right and towards the water there. And it also includes some maintenance to the boat ramp. So if we can go on to, I guess, yeah, so this is just that's the Chapter 91 plan. And one of these days I need to get this fully clarified with DEP, but my understanding is because we have a Chapter 91 plan that shows the historic mean high water line, which you can see there, which runs kind of through the center of the parking area on both sites, that everything seaward of that is filled tidelands. But if you look at where the state has since mapped the presumptive Chapter 91 line, that's actually running along the shore. So we are going to be sending these in as maintenance items to Chapter 91. Although if I was doing a new application and didn't have all this background information in the old files, the presumptive line would actually be much closer to the shore. And I think that may be shown on that aerial that is maybe 29 there, maybe not. It's kind of irrelevant, but so we also are in natural heritage, which is what the next photo shows you. So the mainly the boat ramp work would be in natural heritage. So if we can go down to the site photos, I think is probably best. The area is zoned AE8. Okay, so here's the boat ramp to start with. The plan for the boat ramp, and it would be the two left images are of the boat ramp area. That one that is at the top is from the parking lot looking towards the boat ramp, and the other one is from the boat ramp looking up. You can see the paved surface of the boat ramp is in, pretty rough shape there. The plan is during extreme low tide cycle, it would be skim coated with a new paved surface, And my understanding is it basically is 2 runs over the boat ramp with the pavement and the, you know, and the rollers and all that. And then they're done, and that all can be done during 1 tide cycle in the dry. During that work, and for at least 1 tide cycle after, there would be an absorbent boom installed at the end of the ramp. So that if we have any oils discharged from the fresh pavement, they're collected by the boom. And the boom would be left in place until there's no longer any visible sheen leaving the boat ramp, which should just be a couple tide cycles. But we would just, you know, keep an eye on that before the boom is removed. The next project, if you look at the picture in the center, you can see the handicap ramp on the clubhouse in front, and then you can see the handicap ramp in the bottom center. As part of overall renovations, which are within the footprint of the clubhouse, where they're going to be relocating showers and trying to put a more publicly accessible handicap bathroom on one side of the clubhouse. We need to rebuild the handicap ramp, which is currently not to code. So that is the only thing that really happens outside the footprint. I can show you on the site plans what that involves. There is also some utility work that will happen under the structure. The structure is currently elevated on piles. It is located above the elevation of the floodplain. It does have a very large utility chase structure. I want to say it's like roughly like 15 by maybe 10 or something like that. That's going to be made a lot smaller as part of the process. Britain Construction said that as they move the showers around and all that, they're going to be consolidating those utilities into a smaller utility chase. You know, I don't think it's going to be down to a plumb island 3.5 by 3.5, but it's certainly going to be smaller than what's there now. Part of that is going to depend on the actual location of some pipes under the structure as to how small they can make it, but it will definitely be a smaller solid obstruction. But again, it's above the floodplain. And then if we look on the right-hand side, you can see on the top picture, you can see cracking concrete right next to the pool, and you can see where it's really chipping off those light stains that are kind of right next to the stairs going down into the pool. And then you can see the cracks in the concrete that has been, you know, painted over enough times with maintenance, but they're still coming through. So the idea there would be to chip out the old deck and put in a new pool deck. So if we can go now, I think the next thing to look at would be the site plan, which is the second to last page. Okay, so here you can see the boom is shown in yellow on the boat ramp on the bottom. We have erosion control going from like around on the left-hand side of the area, because anything that drains from that ramp area and also from where the pool is would be flowing towards the reef areas from that, you know, over towards that side. So this kind of shows the detail on that, and you can see where the handicap ramp has to incorporate an extra set of stairs and goes maybe a couple feet out. There will be a new planting bed put in there, and there'll be some curbing put in there to protect the planting bed. So there will be some sort of landscape shrubs put along the front of the clubhouse, but it's really minor amount. The entire impact area is mostly paved. Some of it is gravel, and the gravel area will be converted to a planting bed. So I think that's pretty much it. And I'm happy to answer any questions the commission may have. And also, this is in natural heritage, so we're going to have to continue to the next meeting.
All seems pretty straightforward to me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, on its own, any one of these, except maybe the clubhouse work, would have been an RDA, but it seemed like we were doing all this together. It made sense to do the NOI.
Where the boat ramp is,
Yep.
am I looking at that red line? That's mean low water?
Not sure what red line.
Right at the lower part, yeah, right
Oh,
there.
the yellow? I'm
Uh,
yellow line there is the boom, the proposed boom.
Okay, so
The
what,
the ramp is completely dry and extreme low, the paved surface. So
so mean low water is not shown?
it's just off the ramp. Well, lower low is just off the ramp.
Okay, I'm not seeing any of those lines.
Yeah, no, I'm noticing that is not shown, and we can get you a plan with that shown. I'm going to need that for the Army Corps anyway. This will be an SVN with the Army Corps and maintenance with Chapter 91. So we'll make sure that we do mean lower low before the next meeting.
And as far as the thickness of the pavement,
Yeah, my understanding is just a couple inches. It's just a skim coat over. They're not grinding anything. They're not doing any kind of anything. They say they can get it to adhere to the ramp and expect a 5-year or greater life expectancy. And the long-term goal of the club, and they're trying to budget for it now, is to replace it down the road with the precast concrete ramps. But right now they've got this paved ramp and they've just got to do something to maintain it, and they don't have it in the budget to do a bigger capital project right now.
okay.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, there's still no public. What do we want to do?
There's no file number for this one yet either. So we'll have to
Okay, so we're
continue.
going to be continuing anyways.
Yeah, I have to continue to the 15th. So I guess if the commission doesn't have any more questions or anything, we will get you the low water line shown. I'll get you an updated plan. And we'd like to continue to the 15th.
Your motion?
Motion to continue to September 15th.
Second,
Second,
Okay, Paul Haley,
yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Ken Warshall,
Yes.
David Vine,
yes.
Jane Sender,
Yes.
Ron DeCola,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Have a good night.
Wait, Tom,
Oh, yep.
you want to check in on 1176th Street real
Oh,
quick?
yeah. I meant to reach out to him today. It was just a very flurry day. The front fence was completely removed, and he was moving on to work on the back fence, but I don't know the current status of that. But they were actively working on it, and I can get you photos of the front fence removed. I did send you a markup of a PDF. Did you get it? My email server
Yeah.
is wonky the
This?
last few weeks.
This
Yeah,
one?
so what we're looking at is every X, that would constitute a slat being removed. And then the blue line would be that bottom horizontal piece moved up. And then you would put rabbit fencing across the bottom that's, 90-something% open, 99% open, just to keep the dogs and kids in.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that the other fence was removed. It was supposed to be done by today.
It was just too crazy a day. I apologize. I'll get you an update tomorrow on that.
Okay.
But I know that he's been actively working on it. And what he did in the front, left the post, and he just did these sort of, you'll see when I send it to you, it's like an X so it's got to be 99% open now.
Okay.
In between.
Yeah, if you can just send me some photos of that ASAP,
Right.
just so we can make sure that it's moving.
Yeah, will do. I will get that to you tomorrow, and we'll give you a more comprehensive update at the next meeting. And Everett Chandler has that slated if he hasn't done the field survey, which again, I meant to check in with him. If it hasn't been done yet, it's going to have happened, by the end of the week, and we'll be on track to get the notice of intent filed for everything for after the fact.
Sounds good.
Okay. Julie, you'll share those with us when you get them?
Yep, I will send them to you as soon as I get them from Tom.
Yeah, and I'll get an updated schedule from Everett and just give you that update in the same email as well. All right. Thank you very much.
Okay,
All right. Take care.
you too. Well, let's get a motion to close the public hearings now.
So moved.
Second?
Paul Healy,
Yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Dan Warshall,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
Jane Sender,
Yes.
Ron DeCola,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So we have one order conditions for
Yes.
Holly McDonald, 468th Street.
Right, so for 468th Street, looks like there were 3 special conditions that were discussed. The first was that, well, I wrote this one in because you know how things go with lattice around foundations, but they have it shown on the plans and they agreed to there be no lattice or other enclosure below 5 feet 8 inches, which is the lowest horizontal member aside from the utility chase and the stairways and things like that. So I made a special condition that there shall be no lattice or siding around the open area below the building, below the lowest horizontal members at 5 feet 8 inches. And then there was another special condition that the existing eastern red cedar is to be replaced or replanted on site. And then mitigation planting areas as shown on plans and specified in the notice of intent shall be completed in the growing season immediately after completion of construction and monitored for survival for 2 years. And that's typical for what we do. And then I would put in all the other standard Palm Island things like sand, you know, no soils or mulches, only beach grade sand may be brought on site for planting, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. Get a motion?
Motion to issue the order conditions.
Second?
All right, Paul Healy,
Yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Dan Warshall,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
Jane Sender,
Yes.
Ron DeCola,
Yes.
and I say yes. All right. Do we have any new and or old business?
I had a question a couple of meetings ago about the rail trail and where National Grid had the
Oh,
sign
yeah.
put in that it doesn't look like they've done any additional planting. It looks like they just put a couple of shrubs in there and kind of walked away.
Yeah, Dave, I was supposed to follow up on that one and I haven't yet gotten in touch with them. So I'm gonna make another note to send an email to the National Grid folks who permitted that and see if they can send us some photos and show us how they're gonna finish the planting.
Yeah, because what's out there is not what they described. So
No, you're right, it's not. So that's important. And they, you know, who knows when they would come in for a certificate on that. So I will get in touch with them.
Dave, is that the where is that section of rail trail?
it's just before you get to the American Yacht Club.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yep.
It's a conduit or a culvert that goes under the trail.
Okay. And okay, that does not directly abut the area. I continually confuse that area with the area that's next to the wastewater treatment plant.
You're not
So-
far off. I mean,
yeah, it's close. This is the area that, remember, they had it had gotten washed out and they put a whole bunch of crushed stone in there in this one
Mhm.
area, huge area, it's like where there's a stormwater pipe that went underneath it. And they said they couldn't figure out why it wouldn't hold the plantings. It kept getting washed out, so they filled it with crushed stone. And then we said, well, that's not really what you need to figure it out. So they came up with this proposal to sort of install plantings in and amongst the riprap as best they could. And they showed us photos of it, and the commission agreed, but it hasn't really been accomplished yet.
Okay.
Is that what you're talking about, David?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when they were putting that in, I was always thinking about how that area could be raised a couple of feet, like they're gonna want to do next to the wastewater treatment plant to, to serve as a berm. But
Yeah.
that isn't there, so never mind.
Julia, have you been able to talk with Matt Kazaki yet
No,
about mowing? Because it's getting near time.
it is getting near time. Yeah, I was talking with Jordy about it, and we have not been able to reach him. I don't really know what else to do, but
You could send him a letter at 10 o'clock.
yeah, maybe we can just send him something in writing.
Yeah.
That's probably the best way to do it at this point. Okay.
Yeah, and along that same line, we were going to talk sometime about a mowing and a plan for the land that we're getting from Colby Farm Road.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if we can do a Zoom meeting on that or.
Okay. I'll talk to Jordy about that, and Andy. We have I don't know if we'll have a staff meeting. I think we have a staff meeting on Friday morning, so I'll put this on the list. I'll put both of these things on the list for that. So it's the Colby Farm, yeah. Maintenance.
Right. Well, and kind of laying out what we want to do with all that land.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, Patrick Seacamp did have his planting plans, and
Right.
Yeah, we have a management plan for it. We just need someone to be responsible for implementing the management plan. And Steve, are you also asking what's going to go on in the way back?
Yeah.
Back
Yeah.
lot, yeah. I don't know.
I mean, I'm of the opinion that, there could be a trail there that connects to some of the other trails that we already have.
Yep.
yeah, it's difficult back there though. You'd be crossing the stream, so we'd need some sort of bridge probably.
Right.
There's a lot of wet areas back there, and there's also somebody else's property.
Right. Which they may be willing to give up. It's all wetland. That's
true. It's certainly worth.
It's not usable.
Is that a Colby that owns that? I can't remember.
I don't remember. I think it is. But,
yeah.
And then, I don't know, Julia, you had said at one time that Tom and Lisa were going to give us an update on Evergreen Commons and what was going on out there.
Yeah, we've got a site visit with them actually tomorrow on that because they would like to, the thing came up with the pools. There's actually a whole lot of outstanding special conditions that they haven't met for that subdivision yet. They've talked about wanting to come in and get certificates of compliance for the phase 1 and phase 2 homes. So tomorrow I'm going out with the zoning administrator, as well as I think John Eric is coming. I hope he is. And to look at the whole site and the status of everything out there and have a discussion. So
my concern was that I think there are 3 cellar holes that have not had anything done to them.
Yeah.
They're dug and nothing's happened.
Oh, nothing's happening. They're just sitting there. Well, that's interesting because they've been putting up these houses really fast.
I know.
And they've been selling them really fast too. So that's surprising. I don't know what that would be, what the reasons for that would be, but there are definitely a lot of things that I'm actually glad that they're not done yet, because I was worried that they were going so quickly that they would be done and out, and all of a sudden we'd be left holding this subdivision with a bunch of, undone certificates of compliance and people living there and conditions not met and stuff. So I'm glad that they're still out there on the job and that the site isn't.
I could be wrong on the cellar holes, but I drove by and they certainly looked like cellar holes.
No, you're right. You're right. Their foundations are in. I've seen the same thing. Last time I was out there, I think there were like 5 of them. So maybe they've built a couple since then. But yeah, I'll give you an update after tomorrow when we go out there.
Are you going to be talking to them about pools there too?
Yeah, well, the pools, they need to come in for a request with a request for an amendment for the pools. Because as we discussed before, I think we would like to have, I want there to be a special condition in our orders of conditions that talks about the conditions under which a pool can be put on these lots. So that it's specifically allowed, but that it's only specifically allowed under certain provisions, like you can't increase the impervious surface on any lot more than 5% and that type of thing. And right now it's vague. So we need to nail that down so that when next time someone comes in with a pool permit, we have a way under which to look at that and review it and approve it moving forward. Because it's going to be the next 25 years. We're going to be dealing with what people want to do and not do out there.
So that's your next 25 years, Paul.
Yeah.
Just one other question popped into my mind. What's going on with the solar farm on the dump?
I'm not really in the loop on that so much anymore. I think it's moving forward. I think they've been having some meetings. I know there was recently a discussion with John Eric and their engineers about whether or not they needed to do any work on the culvert that comes under the road from
That flows into the vernal pool?
Yeah, exactly. And that culvert had been crushed and it needed to be fixed. And this goes back years. It has been fixed. It was replaced by New Ventures a long time ago. And so that's in good condition now. And they feel comfortable with that. And Blue Wave has agreed that if anything were to happen to it, that they would be responsible for, they'd fix it. They want to make sure that the stormwater system continues to operate appropriately. But aside from that one conversation that was just had, I really haven't been in the loop on the progress out there. So I can find out. I'll ask on Friday, get an update on that. Yes.
So that's not within the 100-foot buffer?
No, all the work, well, the pipe is, but that's not part of this project. So the solar panels that they're putting up on top of the landfill are all outside of the 100-foot buffer. We looked at this like a year ago and reviewed it, and they're entirely outside of the buffer zone up there. So, and they confirmed with us that all the work that they're doing, including any facilities and surrounding sort of like infrastructure, is all outside of the buffer zone. So it's upland. So that was the extent of our involvement. And we did try, while they're forming an agreement with the city and with DEP to do this solar project, we did try to get them to go back and get movement on the vernal pool issue. And it wasn't something that DEP wanted to put in.
Yeah, they don't care about that.
Yeah, we got blown off on that by all parties. So.
Yeah, be nice to go in there and check again to see if anything is using it again. It's probably not as disgusting as it was 15 years ago, but
yeah, I mean, it's aside from the Phragmites, I mean, I think it's pretty okay in there.
Yeah, I heard wood frogs in there this spring. So.
Oh, you did? Okay, so yeah, when I certified it, I was in up to my hips with barrels and other garbage, a lot of other garbage in there.
Yeah, luckily they did do they started enough of the work that they got a lot of it cleaned up. They just never completed the invasives removal piece.
Yeah, the only concern would be the frag taking over all of it.
Yeah, that's the hardest piece.
But where's this property?
So this is at the landfill at the end of Crow Lane, where they're going to put a solar project up there now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And the vernal pool is directly next to the red recycling barn.
Directly right next to it.
Yes, directly. Okay, well.
Anything new on the Zoom versus hybrid versus in-person meetings and so forth?
So far, the city council is not pushing for boards and commissions to do what they would like to do, which is go back to a more in-person thing. They're kind of leaving boards and commissions out of it right now, which is great. And actually, I'm not really even sure that they have the authority to tell the boards and commissions what to do. But that's why I asked you all for your opinion at the last meeting. And if it comes up again, so for now, things are just going to stay this way. But you know, if you have any concerns one way or another, just let me know. And if anything comes up from the city side, like if the mayor says she wants us all to go back in person, I will let you know ASAP, you know, so that it can be discussed. But so far, that hasn't been, I haven't heard anything about it.
Yeah, I would prefer this, so when I piss off applicants, they can't come and punch me in the face.
Julia, maybe you could bring up at your staff meeting about, I really would like to be able to see the people who are talking.
Okay. I did tell Andy that after the last meeting, when you guys said that, I told him that that's how you all felt. And he said that we could talk about ways to make that happen. He does not want to open up video channels for all of the attendees, but I think that it makes sense to open up the video for the presenters on any given agenda item.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm certainly fine with that.
Okay, why don't, you know, if you could, any of these thoughts that if you could, because, you know, I'm just sort of conveying to Andy what we're talking about. I mean, if you could send me an email expressing that, then it's just better. It's something that I can forward to Andy in writing from you guys. It might have a more of an impact in him sort of saying, okay, and because he has to change the controls on the Zoom meeting in order for us to do it. So I just want to make sure that everyone, you know, is on the same page and that Andy gets why you would like to change it, and then we can hopefully make it happen.
Yeah, because really it would only be a maximum of maybe 3 other people.
Yeah, 3 at a time. And Andy and I also discussed that we don't necessarily want to allow everybody to share their screen, allow the presenters to share their screen. For now, it's better if we're in charge of sharing the screen. But at least we should be able to see their faces. So anyway, if you could send me emails about that, that'd be great.
The reality is their information should be in with you prior to the meeting.
Yeah.
And then, you know, they don't need to share screens.
Right.
They can ask where, tell you where to point. And
right.
it seems
So
to
far,
work.
this has been the smoothest way to do it. I think it makes a lot of sense to keep doing it like with just us sharing the screen.
All right. Anything else?
Yeah, I know it's late, but can you, this is my ignorance, can we talk for a minute about what enforcement authority we have? We've brought up that topic a couple times in the last meeting and this meeting. Is our authority just to compel people to undo what they do? Do we have more authority than that?
Well, that's a good question. So if there's a violation of the Wetlands Protection Act or of our ordinance that we see, or, you know, if anyone sees or we're made aware of by a neighbor or a butter or whatever, then we have the authority. Typically how it works is there's an enforcement order under the Wetlands Protection Act. It's an official form. It's a legal enforcement order that they are required to comply with, and if they don't comply with the requests in the enforcement order, which would be things like immediately stop work, return site to existing condition, whatever it might be, depending on the nature of the violation. If they don't comply with that enforcement order, technically the commission is allowed to issue fines, and the fines can be issued up to $300 per day per violation. And that's like any violation of provisions of the Wetlands Protection Act on that site can be considered an individual violation. And each day that the violation is occurring is a separate violation. So the fines can add up pretty quickly for somebody. We've never fined anybody. We've gotten to the point where we have made it clear that if something doesn't happen by a certain date, that they will be fined, and that in every case so far, that has resulted in compliance with the enforcement order. But typically, if we see something going on anywhere, you know, let's say you get a neighbor who sends photographs of somebody taking down a bunch of trees in the wetland behind their house, or dumping something into the salt marsh, or whatever it might be, excavating some, you know, the vernal pool or whatever. We would issue, if it's sort of circumstantial evidence, we would issue or send them what's called a notice of violation, which basically is a letter and a sort of a form letter that states, it has come to the Commission's attention that there may be a violation of the Wetlands Protection Act or the Newburyport Wetlands Protection Ordinance on your property. The nature of the suspected violation is X, Y, or Z. Please attend the next Conservation Commission meeting on X date to discuss this with the Commission. That's kind of how it goes. And we send that by certified mail. And most of the time, the homeowner will come in. They'll call, they'll email right away. They'll say, oh my gosh, I didn't know what happened. And they'll come in and they'll fix it. And we'll work with them through that without ever even having to necessarily issue the actual enforcement order. But once that enforcement order does get issued, that's a legally binding order they have to comply with. That makes sense?
Great, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else?
Motion to adjourn?
Second,
Paul Haley,
Yes.
Steve Moore,
yes.
Ken Warshall,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
Jane Zender,
Yes.
Ron DeCola,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So, all right, folks.
All right.
Right.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.